Light is dynamic all the time. Whether clouds are going over, whatever, it's changing all the time. There's a magic to it. And I absolutely fell in love with light and the experience that it creates. There's something inherent about that symphony of lights that kind of pulls us in. You put a light at the end of the hallway and people will go there. You make that light blink and they're going to go and they're going to stay. My name's Lyn Godley. I'm a multimedia artist. I work with a traditional art medium as well as light, mostly dynamic light in my studio practice. I was offered a solo show in Germany at a gallery back in 2011, and we filled the gallery with these images of birds in flight where we had embedded fiber optics into along the edges of the wings and the tails. And I got a call from the curator 2 weeks into the show saying that people were behaving strangely, that they were coming into the gallery. There weren't any benches, so they were sitting on the floor and they weren't speaking to each other. And they were staying for up to 3 hours and coming back multiple times. The former president of Jefferson University showed up at my studio. He's talking to me about this new building, Hahnemann building, that they're putting up. He came in with all the plans of the building. He said, I want your artwork all over. And I said, how about we rethink this and how about we start testing what this work can do first? We have a small chapel on our campus that we had used pre-COVID for a project. We approached it differently this time. We said, what if we were to design a space that was intentionally created to calm people down?
We had a projector on each wall. We had one right behind you. We had one on top of the altar. So each wall that you see when you came in was covered. We all came to the table with 4 or 5 different papers and articles, and we picked out the ones that we thought would be beneficial to the purpose of what we were doing.
The designs are based on research, so they're not coming forward saying, I'm going to do this thing because I think it would do this. They're having to find research that says this particular imagery or this particular type of media has been shown to have some impact, and then work with researchers who put together the surveys and the questionnaires to actually gather the data so that we can take a look at what the impact is.
Before doing this, I didn't have any experience in medical research or doing studies. Before then, all I've really done is just design work and artwork.
It was a little daunting at first reading the papers coming from a background that doesn't know much about medical things. We would find those paragraphs that were like, this wavelength at this time, at this color, at this supposed hour, did this.
So a lot of it was just taking keywords or the findings of those research studies and putting them into different search engines. Blue, nature, waves, water, sunset, galaxy, fish, jellyfish, and then we would test them out, seeing what videos worked.
There's something there that's happening when we look at nature-based imagery, at certain patterns, at certain colors, and we haven't even begun to talk about movement or light.
Deciding what would make the cut was trial and error. We would project the images up and see how it made us feel. We were kind of our own focus group in that sense.
It was incredible to just watch. There were points in time where one of the students projected just colors on the wall, and we actually didn't even realize it. We just collectively sat on the floor in front of her while she was just doing work, and we were all just staring. When we were preparing to have the exhibit open to the public and open to certain groups, we didn't know if it was perfect. We didn't know if it would work.
We didn't really have an option to not be satisfied because we ran that last test the night before the projection mapping show started.
It was a little nerve-wracking because we knew everything that was behind the curtains of what we were doing. Seeing other people's reactions that had no idea was what was scary.
And Jefferson actually made an ad. So we had some members of the public come. Seeing the looks on people's faces when they walked in. One of the other people that on the medical side told us that this kid walked in and said, "I've never been smacked in the face with so much beauty." That was, when Wendy told us that definitely felt good.
The second night of the exhibit was where it really hit for me. When people started laying on the floor, they would get out of the chair and sit on the floor and lay down and look straight up. It was just, people were doing exactly what that person had called and told Lyn at her exhibit what they were doing here.
I think our first category was underwater, and then it was above water, sunset, galaxy, and then ink drops. So it went from under the water to above the water to the galaxy.
We opened it to the public 3 evenings we did this. We had about 250 people come through, and so all of the research that we're discussing is really based on that. I really hope to be able to find ways to continue to work with scientists. I knocked on hundreds of doors at Jefferson and across the country trying to, explain what it was I was trying to do and get people interested in working with light and light research. It was a long, slow crawl, but I learned so much by stepping in way above my head in the deep end of the pool to try to understand how to do this. If artists are going to work with scientists, and scientists are willing to work with artists, that everybody has to get rid of the notion that you're the smartest one in the room. Because when you come to the table, we all speak different languages. And just as intimidated as I was to sit at a table and try to talk science with these brilliant scientists, they also are really intimidated to sit at the table and try to talk art with me.
What are some new things that you want to try in terms of light and science?
There's an idea that I'd like to try out where you introduce fog into the bottom half of the room and then projecting rainfall or something into that fog. And I'd really like to see if we'd be able to make it look like it was raining around you.
I'm very curious to think, why is Times Square so interesting? I want to know the balance between an experience like this that could have the benefits that it does. What if the TVs in Times Square did have beneficial aspects to them?
I would love to see the studies on those shorter rhythms of that kind of symphony of dynamic lighting that's always going on outside. It's how do we start measuring other rhythms and patterns that are in the body and the brain other than a 24-hour cycle? I've gotten over worrying about what I'm called, and because I love working across disciplines. I find it to be so much more interesting, and I absolutely love working with other people who are really brilliant in other fields to see how do we play together and make something unexpected happen.